go through something that we haven't looked at before, but I know that you need for your final project, and it's pretty interesting. But before that, I wanted to ask, it'll be a very quick lecture. I want to ask, how's the practice project going? What kind of questions can I answer? What do you find? Bruce is done? Okay, cool. Who else is done? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. My recommendation for those of you who are done, and I've mentioned it before, but I would suggest you head on over to Code Wars. If you don't remember what it is, I'll paste it in Discord and Winter Channel. And go find some problems that are challenging for you. I enjoy doing this stuff. I mean, I think you're going to get, these are not building a website, these are solving problems, but they will absolutely make you a better programmer in every sense, right? Being able to solve these problems is really a separator between developers. And the more problems you solve, the better you get. So I would recommend doing that, especially since we only really have a day. Alternatively, I did mention that I was going to look for some more advanced topics, but that are not something that I teach. So kind of like a diverging topic. But I haven't had a chance to do that yet. And I don't know what I can find in a day. I might be able to find something that you can kind of continually work on the side as you start to finish these things that help provide additional information and support to being a web developer. Maybe not specific to JavaScript, maybe specific to JavaScript, but I'll take a look. Okay, so just be patient. Do some Code Wars in the meantime. Do not, I repeat, do not waste your time. Okay, every little bit of time that you sink in to becoming a better programmer will increase your job opportunities and increase your wage. Starting wages, if I haven't mentioned this already, can vary from 30,000 to, the lowest I've seen is 30,000 from students getting hired from this program. The highest I've seen is 55,000. So that's a $25,000 difference. And so there is a big range there. And the more you practice, the closer you can get to those top level ranges and the better jobs. And the difference between those jobs are quite drastic. You were talking about someone working at Ubisoft versus someone working for a no-name company on a contract that could end any day, right? So that's the two different styles there. Okay, so good. Any other than the people who are done, for the people who are not done, what kind of problems are you running into?
So for me, I didn't set or got the players into a variable. I just tried to make up from the other things that as I go, change the numbers. And I ran into problem when I roll the dice, and both of the dice, when they are not one, is good. But when it's only one is one, the other one gets added to the bottom part. So I'm restructuring.
Okay. I would recommend putting your players in some sort of, honestly, an object, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking right now.
Yeah. Player 1 object, player 2 object, because we're tracking, each player has a score, a total, a round, right? Like they don't have too many properties, but it's better than storing those separately. And then you should probably have some sort of way of tracking the turns. Like it could be player 1 turn, or it could be and then true or false. You only have to track one person's turn, right?
Yeah,
Because if
that part I'm okay. Yeah.
yeah, if and I'm just talking generally for other people who are listening too.
Ah, okay.
You only really have to track one turn, right? Because if you know that if player one, if in the game they use player zero and player one, so if it's player zero's turn, that means it's not player one's turn. And then if it's not player zero's turn, that means it is player one's turn. So that can even just be a true or false, or can be a variety of ways of representing it. But yeah, you mentioned it actually toggles. Yeah, you can toggle it. Just toggle between. Yeah, right. It's what I'm trying to say is it's only ever one person's turn at a time. It can't be both person's turn. So you really only need one variable that flip-flops, that toggles back and forth to indicate whose turn it is. And how you do that, you can use a Boolean, right? You can use a string. You can use a variety, like depending. I found this project to be very interesting because you're playing with strings in this one too, right? You're modifying those dice strings. You are modifying. Oh, have you been allowed to? Yeah. Can you not record, Harold? Maybe I missed you. Allow record. Sorry about that. Again, yes, if you can't record, just let me know. Right. So there's a couple of there's a couple of other pieces that yeah. Anything else that people are struggling with? It's not, again, if anyone's having a hard time, or for those of you who have completed it, like it's not hard, or for those of you who are working through it, are you finding it's not hard? There's just lots of little pieces, right? Is that
For me,
accurate?
it's really just figuring out how to do player one and player two and separating the scores somehow. So yeah, that's been the challenge. I'm still in planning how to do that.
Okay, so again, that can be an object. You can keep track of all that like really separately, but you'll notice you can do this in a very brute force type of approach and have very, very long code, which can be okay, right? At least you have it. At least it's solved, at least it's working. But you can also probably reduce that code to half. So think about Harold, think about storing all that information in an object, tracking all this user information, or some sort of string or array that we can dynamically change it. That way you don't have to ask, is it player one's turn? If it's player one's turn, I have all this information about player one that I need to modify. Okay, I mean, that would work. You can do that. You could say if it's player one's turn, here's all the pieces for player one. Like here's this player one score. Here's player one's round total. Update player one's this and do that. Right. So you can have that, and then you can have a separate block for player two. If it's player two's turn, do this and do this and do this. Right. But there's a way that you can merge those together. For those of you who are all done and are looking for an advanced approach, if you have those two separate, you can merge those together and create one type of that you don't really care whose turn it is. You just do. I won't. I'll show you a solution tomorrow. But sorry if I'm being a little bit vague. I want you to spend the time to actually try to solve it yourself. Okay. Okay, so this morning I'm going to go through something new. It's just one little piece, but it's definitely going to generate some questions. Yes, Saria.
So, are you going to go through this pick game after? I know you are going to give us the solution. Can we go through with you individually if we? ask?
Probably not. I'm spending a lot of time already going through individual assignments.
Okay,
So
got it. Yeah.
yeah, so just to give you a sense, like it takes me, if you've already gone through a review with me, generally individually, it can take me upwards of 45 minutes to review code with you. And I just don't have the time to extend that to every person all the time for every single exercise that we do, unfortunately. I have a lot of planning to do for coming back because I'm modifying the courses quite tremendously going forward. And I also want to finish correcting everything on the assignments. So yeah. Yeah, but if I do have the time, here's what I'll offer. Ask me, send it to me. If I have the time, I'll do it with you. If I don't, I won't. Right. And it's kind of, don't feel bad if I reject you, but you'll never know if you don't ask. If you just stop asking, then I will obviously never do it. Right. But just continue to ask and I'll just continue to say yes or no. Okay. It's the best way. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to go through this new thing and then I'll let you get back to work. I've got a couple more assignment reviews to do, and there's a couple conversations with some people that I do need to have. Okay, so we're going to look at my desktop here. So I'm going to start sharing this. Move this down. Move this down. Okay. So this thing that we're going to look at is called SetTimeOut. It's a JavaScript function, and it's one of the few JavaScript functions that allow us to track time. We've never done anything that allows us to really track time before. Okay, everything has been everything has been done either in order or based on some sort of event that's happening, or like we're calling a function. But we've never been able to say, after 5 seconds, do this, right? And there's not a lot of things in programming languages that allow us to track time. Yeah, like setting a timer on a cooler to change timer. Oh, yeah. Setting a timer on a color, setting a timer on anything, right? I'll show you how to set a timer and I'll show you some, because we're going to need it. One of the things I had mentioned is that I might show you your final project that we were going to be building, okay? And then we'll show it to you very briefly. Let's see, where are we? We're over here. JavaScript basics. I'll show you, I won't show you your final project. I'll show you something very, very similar to your final project. I still have it. Original assignment. I don't, let me just take a little detour here. Sorry about this. I'm kind of just, I want to show you where this would be, why this is going to be important and applicable. Okay. So I'm going to steal an old final project. From a different class. that's not the same as yours, but very similar. And the reason why I'm not showing is because I don't want people to start building it or start thinking about it or start worrying about it. I want people to do it at the right time. So I'm just going to download some other students from a couple years ago. Okay, so can everyone see this? Good, good, good. Yep. Okay, so this is similar to what you're going to be building. It's not exactly what you're going to be building. Okay, there are some differences. Now, it's essentially a matching game. This one is essentially a matching game. Okay, and so some of the logic is going to kind of overlap, but generally in a matching game, right, the way it works is you flip over one piece and then you flip over another piece, and they either match, and if they match, they stay flipped over, or they disappear or something, right, depending on how you want it. If they don't match, they flip back over. Okay, so we have one piece that's flipped over, and when we click on a second piece, that piece needs to flip over and stay flipped over for a short period of time. So you see that there's a period of time where they're both being shown. And that period of time is actually like a time frame in JavaScript. When we're dealing with computing, right, the computer can determine when I click on this whether it is a matching symbol or not within a millisecond, right? The computer knows. And so if you don't put this timing piece in, as soon as I click on it, what ends up happening is it never shows up, because it takes time for this animation to occur, and it takes time for us to show the user what the symbol was before they flip back over. So we kind of have to set a delay. We say, keep this open for a few seconds before you actually determine whether or not it's a match, because we don't want you to just determine it to match and close right away, because you would never see it. If I went ahead and modified this code to take away that timing, and then went back here and ran it, this is what it looks like when you don't have a timer. See, it goes super fast. And that's not a very good experience. Like in some cases, you can't even see it. So you want to create this timer that says how long to keep the cards open for. Now I've made it really long. 1.5 seconds. Okay, so this is going to be important for your project coming up, because your project is going to be very similar to this. Okay, so how do we do that? And the answer is we use something called SetTimeOut. Okay, so I'm going to include this JavaScript file. Okay, and in my JavaScript file, it's empty. So SetTimeOut looks like this. Okay, it's just a function like alert. Okay. However, SetTimeOut takes two parameters. The first parameter is some function to run, like a block of code to run, just like all the other blocks of codes we've ever used. Okay, it will run. It's essentially saying, I will run this block of code after, and the second parameter, the second argument is a time. And that time is based on milliseconds. So this is half a second. 500 milliseconds is half a second. So what happens is the code still runs from top to bottom. Okay, so it hits line 1. Let's say 4. Okay, hits line 1 or line 2, it runs this. It hits line 4, and it waits half a second before it runs this function. Now, that is usually an anonymous inline function. This is typically how you would see SetTimeOut used with an anonymous inline function. Okay, but again, depending on how you want to approach it, depending on your needs, it does not take any parameters. Okay, and we'll actually, I don't need to use a web page for this. I'll just run this in my JavaScript. I don't need this. So I'll print this. I'll run this. Okay, before and set timeout. So it takes a second before the second one runs. So if we extend that to 2000, that's 2 seconds. So I run this. And then it takes 2 seconds before this part prints out. Okay, so this is super cool. I agree. And now we have the ability to do some timing, right? To pause and wait, because the computer wants to do everything super fast as it possibly can. And at certain points, we're like, whoa, just relax, okay? Just flip those cards over, let the user soak in the symbols on those cards, and then flip them back. So take some time. Okay, now, there's a really interesting side effect to this. Watch this. So I have a before, I have an after, oops, and then I have my set timeout in between. I will run this now. So if you look at the output, you'll see that before and after have run immediately before the stuff in here. So what is not happening that a lot of people think is happening is that it hits this line and it stops and waits here for 2 seconds. But that's not how it works. What it essentially does is it hits this line and it says, oh, okay, I'm going to run this block of code in 2 seconds, but I'm not going to stop the execution of the rest of the code. So I'm just going to kind of put this aside, and in 2 seconds, I'm going to run it at that time. So any code that comes after will start getting run immediately. This type of code, this is called asynchronous. It doesn't block the rest of the script from running. It just puts itself aside, and then it sets a little timer on itself and says, okay, in 2 seconds, I'm going to run myself, which means, or I'm going to run the block of code that you asked me to, which means that any code that comes after should really not depend on anything that happens in here. So I should never say something like const a equals that. All right, so this piece of code here is, so all I'm doing is I'm declaring a variable, I'm assigning it a value, and then I'm dividing it. Now this could have been anything. I could have just said John, right? And then said, this is probably better, a.length. And you're like, oh, okay, this will be 1, 2, 3, 4. A.length will be, so this will print out 4, right? And the answer is no. This will be, it could be undefined. It might even be error. Yeah, it's an error. Cannot read property length of undefined. So A is undefined, and you can't do length of undefined. And the reasoning is because I can't depend on this variable, because this variable, this line of code will technically run before this variable is assigned, because this variable doesn't get assigned for 2 seconds. So some people do really weird stuff that you really don't want to do. Like, oh, if this one is 2 seconds long, then I'll do another one down here for 2100 to just 100 milliseconds longer. So I guarantee that it'll run after. And it does, but that is not a good approach. Typically, if you want your stuff, if your stuff depends on stuff in the SetTimeOut function, you typically want to put it all in that function in order. Or you would do something like this. You put like a check around it. If A does not equal undefined, that means it's been set properly. Then run this. Something like that. You could do that, or you can move this into a function and then say, well, whenever you're done, right at the end of your set timeout, when you're done, call your function that will print out A or check the length. So this is the true concept of a callback. When I'm done running my code, call this function. You don't need to return anything. There's no returns from set timeout. It's just you're setting a delay for a block of code. That's it. Okay. But it doesn't stop the entire script from running. Those are the two pieces that are really important. It sets a delay for a block of code, and it doesn't stop the rest of the script from running. So you have to be careful with it. And you can say function by function. Right. And so when after this is done, this would run. And that would work fine. If we call a function in timeout, we have to use, no. So if, for example, just like any other callback, if I wanted to use this function in set timeout, just like any other callback function, I just use the name. Oh, sorry. And this is consistent across the board all the time. Whenever we pass functions, right, we have to understand there's a significant difference between this and this. And it's not about what we're using. For example, oh, do I put the parentheses on it because it's set timeout? The answer is no, it's never about this. It's always about what do we want to run the function right now and provide the return value of that function. What does this function return? This function doesn't return anything explicitly, therefore it's undefined. If I put this, I am essentially passing this into set timeout, because that, putting the parentheses on it, will invoke the function first and cause it to evaluate before set timeout is run, right? Because it's in the parentheses, right? Order of operations. If I take these off, then I'm passing the entire function to set timeout, and I'm saying set timeout, here's my block of code. It's in this named function. After 2 seconds, go run it. Right, and that is consistent with every time we're passing around functions. So it has nothing to do with set timeout, it has to do with the function itself. We pretty much, whenever we're passing functions, we never want to put parentheses on it, unless you want to pass the return value of that function. questions, comments, concerns. That's it. That's the last piece that you need for the assignment. I typically don't teach it in a specific, like it doesn't really fit in any of the lessons we do, but I feel like it's complex enough that I wouldn't want to leave it for you to just go look at and be like, you're going to need this, go research it. I definitely want to show it to you and show you some of the pitfalls that a lot of new developers run into when they're using it. And it is really around the concept of it pauses the code. It does not pause the code. So don't rely on things that are inside happening before your other code is running. That is and that matters. We were right no. In the final, I give you the HTML and the CSS. But if you finish quickly, you are welcome to modify it. Yeah. So I'll give you exactly like I did with the bingo. I'll give you some HTML and CSS. You will have to do some modifications to it though, because I'll give you samples of what it looks like to have a card open, what it looks like to have a card closed. And when the cards match, they change again. And so I'll give you all those little different samples of CSS classes, but you'll have to take those out. You'll have to shuffle the cards. You'll have to match the cards, figure out when a winner. You could add your own classes or IDs. You don't have to. If you pretty much, if you go and start changing it, you're probably making it more difficult for yourself. But if you finish early and you want to play around with it, yeah, I've got people who make crazy Halloween ones or Christmas themed ones or whatever. They change the symbols, they change the background, they change the cards. Yeah, they do all sorts of things. So, but before you do that, I usually say, come check it out with me first. Don't go into it with that thought. Final Fantasy VII, yeah, sure. I'll play it. You can probably sell it right now, actually. Okay, so I will be available again. So probably for the next hour or so, I will be reviewing assignments with individuals, probably until 11 or 11. Yeah, 10:30, 11, with a little bit of a break in there. I also have to have a couple conversations. And then after that, I'm just available. I'll be working on your next course, actually, putting together your next course. I'm just looking at it now and I'm not really happy with it. Is the final project the same as the HTML CSS for 2 days or just 1 day, but we need to finish? It's the same. So unlike the HTML and CSS course where I give you one piece on 1 day and another piece on another day, this is 2 days, take it home. However long it takes you, it takes you. Don't cheat. This is where a lot of people end up cheating. And this is where a lot of people end up failing because they cheat. I'm really good at catching that stuff. But yeah, you have 2 days. 2 days, take it home, take your time. I think, again, I don't know exactly what time I'm going to make it end at. It could be midnight on Friday. It might be 6 o'clock on Friday. I want you to go and eat dinner with your family at home or have the chance to watch TV or do whatever. And it might be 6 o'clock. I don't want you working on it until midnight. We'll see. So, generally, I want us to come to Zoom every day. Oh, tomorrow for sure. Tomorrow I'm reviewing the exercise. And then I'm handing out the final project. Yeah, Friday, typically I do like to jump on Zoom. I think yes, I will have them marked by the end of the day. Wait, let me just scroll back. Okay. I will let you know about the final project when we get to the final project. Okay, you guys are asking me a lot of questions about it, so that'll come tomorrow. I pretty much like to do Zoom every day because that's the only touch point we have, right? The other thing I want to quickly, briefly mention is there's a significant amount of you who drop out of Discord halfway through the day. And I know we're not running a 8:45 to 3:15 class anymore, but when I see that, I definitely make a judgment on your level of engagement. And it concerns me when I don't see you on Zoom, when I don't see you on Discord, and then you don't do very well on exercise or an assignment. Okay, so please try to treat this as much as you can like school. At least 3:15. I'm here every day, 8:45 to 3:15. Not because I have to. Things are really crazy. Things are really weird right now. But because I want to pretend like life is normal and I need structure. And I want to provide structure for you because I know structure helps with learning. Providing an environment for learning is important. And please show up. I see it's the same 15 people every day, which means it's the same 7 people who are not connected. Okay. Please connect. Yeah, that's it. 9:30. Let me know if you have any questions on the project. Code Wars for those of you who are done. And I will chat with you later.